Renzo, what you reading?
Oh, I'm reading the old comic book Rye, published by Valiant. What about you?
I'm reading the new Rye, also put out by Valiant.
Aren't they the guys that put Shadow Man on the Dreamcast or something?
It's a long story. Anyway, we just got back from Valiant HQ in New York City.
So let's hear it straight from them.
We are at Valiant HQ. We are a comic book company. We publish 9 to 10 titles every month, including Manowar, Harbinger, Bloodshot, Archer and Armstrong, Dr. Mirage, a whole bunch of titles. We have what is commonly referred to as one of the most popular shared universes in the history of comics.
So Valiant was started in the late 80s by a group of Marvel executives that left Marvel, including a man named Jim Shooter, very famous man in comics, editor-in-chief of Marvel for about a decade, handpicked by Stan Lee to run Marvel, oversaw a creative renaissance. A lot of the best stories from that period came out under Jim's reign. If you think about Frank Miller on Wolverine, and Claremont and Byrne on X-Men, and Simonson on Thor, like a lot of great stuff. Jim left. He took a group of executives with him, and they wanted to get back to the tenets that Stan Lee used to build the Marvel Universe, which were more ambiguous characters, a better relationship with the reader, strong characterization, telling the kinds of stories that no one in any other medium is telling. And they did this at Valiant, built a whole new universe, launched with some of the characters that we have now, X-Men, Manowar, Harbinger, Bloodshot, great success. So courted by a number of entertainment companies, eventually bought by a company called Acclaim Entertainment, big video game developer, distributor. Acclaim mined the library for video games. They rebooted all the continuity, silly mistake, dumbed the characters down so they're more easily translatable to video games. Fast forward a couple of years, and Acclaim itself goes under. We came in, put the money together, bought the assets, and then slowly built the team that we have today.
Valiant is very much of today. We very much write about what's happening in the world today. We were writing about the 1% when it happened. I believe we would define it as our superheroes are normal people who happen to be superheroes. So if all of a sudden you got superhero powers, I don't know if all of a sudden you'd be good, or I don't know if you'd all of a sudden do this, but you might do the things that Peter Stanchek did, before you knew what you had was a superpower.
Valiant's always sort of been the real world extrapolated by about 15 degrees in a science fiction sort of direction. So things that are theoretically possible, telekinesis, telepathy, experiments that DARPA's doing, those kind of components are really how we've envisioned our universe, or how it was envisioned when we initially began. So we'll have a character like Bloodshot who's driven by nanites and cutting edge technology. We'll have a character like Manowar who's derived from alien technology. And they're sort of a little bit grittier, a little bit more street level, a little bit more emotionally honest per se. Well, I'd say that you're not going to have many opportunities to sort of jump on board at the rebirth of a universe. If you read 1 or 2 comics a week, you'll be able to get the entire vision of the universe.
The one thing that we do is everything has to be about the story. That's the only tool that we have, is if we can outright the competition, we have a place in the industry. We don't have a corporate parent. So we don't have a movie slate that's coming up that are mandating certain stories, or a licensing program that's mandating certain stories, which really gives us the freedom to tell stories any way we feel is the best way to tell that story. So when you read our books, you have no idea what's coming next. We could kill a major character, we don't care. We're just trying to do our own thing and tell the best stories we can.
Really, on some level, you can pick up almost any Valiant comic and get right into it. If you're a Valiant reader, find somebody else who's not a Valiant reader, and sit them down and force them to read Valiant comics. You'll be doing them a favor.
Thanks for watching.
Here are some of our faves from the Valiant lineup.
Bloodshot feels like an 80s action movie perfectly distilled into comic form. The closest analog to this character is 1980s Windsor-Smith era Wolverine. There are rules to how Bloodshot's healing factor and nanomachines work, which are explicitly laid out so you know his strengths and limitations. What's really interesting is seeing how the story subverts or bends these rules, and seeing how Bloodshot has to adapt. Unlike Wolverine, Bloodshot's healing factor is its own character, taking the form of a hallucinatory family. Continually on the run, Bloodshot is constantly put in a position where he doubts what's right and wrong, and who he can trust.
Archer and Armstrong does a great job of balancing contemporary humor and commentary with high-stakes adventure. Archer, a perpetual innocent with an encyclopedic knowledge of hand-to-hand combat, is roped into an adventure with Armstrong an immortal drunk hobo, as the two of them try to save the world from a secret devil-worshipping cult operating out of Wall Street.
Manowar takes an interesting approach to a fish-out-of-water character exploring a world of aliens and devastating technology. The main character, Arik of Dacia, a Visigoth warrior, finds himself transported into a modern setting, in control of the most powerful weapon in the Valiant universe. Arik genuinely feels like a character out of time. Even though he has an insanely powerful supersuit that could generate any kind of weapon or tool imaginable, he chooses to wield a sword and fight up close and personal. Think the Guyver meets Conan. Quantum and Woody are the world's worst superhero team, and they have to clear their name after being framed for murder while also fighting off a shadowy organization comprised of freakish experiments, and the only ally they have is a weaponized goat. Where Archer and Armstrong is a global adventure, Quantum and Woody is a frantic jaunt. Despite being another humorous duo book, Quantum and Woody has its own unique bent focused on super science and the family drama between an amoral thief and his overzealous, law-abiding brother.
The current iteration of Rai is interesting to read alongside the old version. Both take their own approach in showing a Japan in the distant future guarded by an ever-vigilant warrior. New Rai, with its reshaped society, android second-class citizens, and implications of a past war, is reminiscent of Battle Angel Alita and some of the dystopian sci-fi manga of the 1980s. This Rai is sort of a computer program made flesh that is starting to confront his uncertainties about the world he is protecting as he shapes his own identity. Old Rai is tied very heavily into Jim Shooter's run on Magnus Robot Fighter for classic Valiant, and feels a little cheesier, but that Rai is a member of a long family line of heroes that is struggling to maintain his own humanity as various factions demand his loyalty.
The current crop of Valiant books emphasize a strong sense of interconnectedness. Something developed in Manowar leads to the creation of the team book Unity, which spills over into Rai's story. But that being said, you don't feel obligated to read all the books to make sense of overarching events. Every Valiant book has a distinct identity and can be appreciated either on their own or as a larger whole. Until next time,
Be seeing you!
thank you for watching Beyond the Longbox.
If you enjoyed the show and would like to see more, please hit subscribe and we'll continue to bring you the best in comics.
Worship me!
Now, I was a huge Valiant fan growing up. I was reading Valiant when I was 12 years old. I think you have a shot, I'm not sure who in the office gave it to you, I'm going to have stern words with them, of me in front of a Valiant birthday cake of the Valiant logo.